Hello, everyone, and this is Daryl Price with D3 Technologies, and joined today by Joshua Buff, and we will be presenting today's content. This is the second of 4 short sessions. So today's topic, purchasing, know what you have and know what you need. It's a good example of a recent story where during an implementation, inventory exposed $1 million that is sitting there in inventory that was not known. So the timeliness and the ability to have visibility on the things you need and the decision levers you need to pull are very key. So Joshua will be walking us through and may even expand on that particular point a little further. The other thing, just before I hand this off to Joshua, is D3's ERP is built on top of CTEC's platform. So from time to time, you'll see the name or the logo of CTEC. That's to be expected. They're part of our partnership, and they have really built the underlying machine that we've built ours on top of. So with that, Joshua, I'll go ahead and turn it over to you, and thank you all for joining us today.
Thank you, Daryl. So we're just going to go ahead and jump right in here. So like Daryl said, we're talking about purchasing. Know what you have, know what you need. I mean, if some of you are like a previous client that I've had, I mean, inventory is all over the place. There's not really a great system on how you keep track of what you currently have, what you need. It's a tedious process, takes lots of man hours, and there's got to be a better solution. Well, CTEC has that solution here. So we're going to go ahead and jump right in here. So one of the ways that it handles that is all of the departments are connected. So what do I mean by that? So as soon as you get an order, you know, your sales department puts an order in, it's in the same system. So your accounting, your sales, your purchasing, your inventory, your warehouse, production, it all feeds into the same software. And so that means that almost instantaneously, you can see what you need to order, what you have on hand. You can see those transactions as they're going live. You don't have to replicate that data from 3 or 4 different programs and hope there wasn't a transpositional error that causes a major loss in either time or money. So that's a big benefit. Is you have less possibilities of errors, and you actually know what you have on your shelves and what you need and when you need to have it by. So that's a big benefit here. So we're going to go ahead and jump into kind of see how that kind of works here. So the first thing we're going to take a look at is P quotes. So D3 ERP considers any quote for a purchase order a P quote. So as you'll see here, this is kind of the base look of a P quote. So you can see I've got my vendor, I've got what type of shipping it's going to be, terms, haven't specified those yet. That's the basic information you have to have filled out at the top there. And then you can see highlighted in yellow here, I've got my component that I'm going to be placing an order for. And then the doc date is when do I need to hit my doc. So I've said, hey, I need this on the 29th, you know. So it says, hey, I need it today, basically, because today's the 29th. So it'll let me schedule that. And once I'm done, I just slide on over here to convert to PO, and then it actually converts it to a real PO, and it's considered committed, you know. So then we'd send it off to the vendor, and you'd go through that whole process. The next thing it lets you do very easily is look at your open POs. So this is all the current open POs that I have for this component. And it doesn't even necessarily have to be with the same vendor or supplier. So that's pretty handy. You can see what do I currently have out through all of time right now. So as you can see, I've got 3 different POs here with 3 different doc dates. So it allows you to easily kind of click through those. The blue text of the PO number right here is actually a link, so you can click on that and it'll pull up the actual PO that was placed, so you can view those details. So that's very, very convenient. The next thing that you'll take a look and see is the PO history. So how many times have I placed a PO for this in the past? And this is going to be specific to closed, canceled, or received, you know. So this is going to say, hey, I placed a PO on April 4th of this year for a quantity 4 at my cost of $34.69. And so this lets you see the entire history of this. So if you have to go back and say, okay, well, I thought I was paying less 10 months ago, you can actually go back and see that record Or if something isn't adding up, you know, like I know that I've bought 1,000 of these, but I only have 800 on my shelf, and I know I've only used 100. Where's that other 100? It kind of gives you a tool to kind of dig in and kind of see where things are and where they're going. It's a pretty powerful tool there. The next thing that's kind of unique is a part cross. So the reason this is important is because this allows you to say, hey, part X is actually the same as part Y, but it's different for any number of reasons. You know, those reasons could be it's a customer part number, manufacturer part number. It's just the same thing. You know, it functions the same, but it has a different part number, a different design, but it functions essentially the same. Or the vendor has a different part number, you know, 2 different vendors. So you can actually add this part here where I've got subcomponent 6. I'm saying I can use in a pinch if I need to, or I just feel like I want to. I can use subcomponent 6 instead of subcomponent 1. So this allows you to kind of monitor your inventory and say, okay, I'm way overstocked on subcomponent 6. It's going to take me a year to use all this. Well, I can sub them out for subcomponent 1. Maybe it only takes me 3 months to use that. So it kind of allows you to manage your inventory a little bit better, so you're not sitting on a pile of assets for a really long time. The next thing that is a pretty powerful view here is the warehouse view. And so this is just on the general part record here. As you'll note here on the left-hand side, you've got all of these menu items, and that's where all those last pages that we just kind of took a look at are found. You can access them from here. But you'll notice here at the bottom, I've got my bin, I've got a receipt, the date, total quantity. So that's kind of a good view. So it says, hey, here's all the inventory you have and here's where it's located. So if I have another bin, like say it's A7-13-B1, there'd be another line right there and it would actually populate, hey, I've got 3 there. So it tells you exactly where all your inventory is right at that moment. And this is a powerful feature. For a previous client of mine, it was literally a, hey, we need 7 of these. And then a guy goes out and looks for 4 hours and finally finds it and brings them back. You know, it was very hard to organize it when you didn't have an organization tool that was accurate every single time. So this is huge for organizing your inventory there. Another nice thing here is right on the same page, you've got right here is quantity of hand. How many do I have right now? And then this is quantity on order. How many do I have on order right now? And then quantity required. So how many am I going to need? So that's a powerful view just right here. You got all of that information you need right at your fingertips in this singular view. You don't have to go to 10 different places to view that report. So it's very powerful. It's very handy. The next pretty powerful tool we're going to look at here is called the waterfall. And so this is essentially just a log. Like think of it as a checkbook register of what you have incoming and what you've got outgoing. So as you can see, I'm going to start with 4 of these top level parts. And then it looks like I'm going to consume 4 on that second line item there. And so it's going to put my balance at 0. And so then, it says, hey, I'm going to consume 4 more of these on the 3rd of May. So it's going to put me negative. So here it's showing me, hey, you're set to need this material and you don't have it. You're not going to have it it's not going to be ready. So then that allows your purchasing agent or your production agent to look at this and immediately take a course to correct it. That's a very powerful tool here. And it says, you're not going to have it till the 15th. So that allows your sales team or whatever your work path is to make appropriate accommodations. Maybe it's get that part in here quicker. Maybe it's delay the customer order. Whatever makes sense for your business, this allows you to prep for it ahead of time instead of reacting to it in the moment. You know, you're not waiting until the 3rd of May to find out I don't have enough. You're able to see this as soon as this information is available, which means as soon as you place in orders and as soon as you place POs, that instantaneously populates. So that's a very powerful tool here. And then you can see on the right-hand side, the things that show up here are going to be internal work orders, or if you place a PO to a vendor/supplier. So it kind of works the other way. So it's going to say, hey, I'm going to create 8 of those on the 15th. So you're going to have a surplus of 4. And then on the 29th of May, you're also going to create another 4 more. So I'm going to have a surplus of 8. So it is a very simplistic view. that allows you to head off potential issues very, very quickly. A good example of how this has helped a previous client is I'm not sure how many of you are familiar with steel tubing, but they would order steel tubing, and typically their order quantity would be less than the full stick. It'd be so many feet, and they'd only need to use a portion of it. Well, the vendor would say, hey, do you guys mind taking the whole thing? And this was before they used D3 ERP. So they were just managing everything on paper. It wasn't a very organized system. They had one guy that would go out and count every single week and report those numbers, and then they'd purchase off of what they needed once a week off of his handwritten numbers. So if he missed a pallet here or there, they could easily end up over ordering. Well, that's what ended up happening, is that they were accepting a larger amount of material than they needed to keep a good relationship with the supplier, and then they would miss a pallet here or there of this part, and it ended up, after several months of this happening, like a better part of a year, they ended up with almost $30,000 of extra stock. Now, when I say extra stock, I mean this is beyond what they currently have committed. It's going to take them the better part of 2 years to use this up. I mean, it's a massive amount of excess inventory that they just have to sit on, because they don't have a different use for it. They can't scrap it because they'd take a hit on it. So they're just basically sitting on this because they didn't have a good inventory management system in place, and so their purchasing system also wasn't where it needed to be. So then we're going to go ahead and talk about the purchasing side of it, right? Not just the tracking of what we currently have. So this is MRP for D3 ERP, and that stands for Manufacturer Resourcing Planning, and this is specifically for the purchase, the buy side of things. So take a look at this screen here, and you're going to notice a few things about it. There's lots of different filters at the top. You can filter this report by your vendor. So say you just want to take a look and see, what do I need to buy from this vendor or that vendor, and you can filter just to show those results. The source type. So D3 ERP has 2 different types of source types. The first is going to be reorder point. So this is going to be a min or a max point. So you say, hey, I need to keep at least 100 in stock, and you've got 50. It's going to say, hey, time to order more, kind of like a Kanban type system there, or supply and demand. Now, the supply and demand means I have a demand for this part, but I don't have a supply for it. So it'll say, hey, you need to order 8 of these because you need these. So that's that type of source type, if that makes sense. The internal vendor, so that's going to be, is this something I produce versus something that I send out for a different vendor? That one's pretty simple. Location, this is going to be, does your business have multiple sites? Maybe you have to place an order to one in 3 states away that produces a product over there that you don't make over here. So that's going to be internally within your company. Prc Code. This one kind of throws a few people off here, the PRC part. So as you'll note over here, I'm going to highlight it for you. You've got PRC, and then you've got part. So D3 ERP there has a PRC code, which is really just a 3-character classification code meant to make identifying and reporting parts easier. And then you have your actual part number itself. So commonly within D3 ERP, the PRC code will be butted right up to the part number. That's why it's called the PRC part. And so you can filter just by that category, or you can filter for a specific component. Maybe you want to see all the purchase orders you need for this component itself. So you would do that in that field. Maybe you need to look at your order. You want to see, what do you need to buy for a specific order? You can do that as well. And then maybe you want to look at bill of materials. I want to see everything that has a bill of material that I need to purchase, because sometimes there's stuff that you make and you purchase. Previous clients have done that as well. So this allows you to kind of filter through that and say, am I going to make it this time, or am I going to buy it this time? There's quite a few more filters on there. Those are the common ones, so we won't go over the rest of those. We're going to kind of dive into the data on the chart now here. There's quite a bit of information there. So the first one we're going to go over is lead time. So that's right here. I'm going to highlight it, make it a little bit easier there for you. So that shows you in terms of weeks, what is the lead time. So it shows you if I order it today, plus the lead time, what is the date that it should be on my dock? That's what that date is displayed. So that's a pretty neat view to show. If I order it today, when will I actually get it? Then you've got your need date right beside it, and that says when do I need the component. So it's pretty interesting there on that first line item of component 2. You see your lead time's 1 week, so it means you'll get it on the 6th of May, but you need it on the 3rd of May. So that flags your purchasing agent. He's probably going to have to call in a favor or see if he can get it sooner, and maybe not. He's going to have to talk to operations and let them know that, hey, this isn't going to be coming in time. You need to make accommodations. So that's a pretty powerful view, just a direct contrast there to know if you're going to be able to hit your required dates or not. The next column there is called buy date, and that's the recommended purchase date. Now, that's the recommended purchase date for you to meet your commitment. Now you'll notice the buy date typically is exactly what the lead time is minus need date. So that's one of those cultural things. Maybe you want to do it 2 days before that. Maybe you want to do it 4 days before it. D3 ERP gives the purchasing agent all of the information and allows them to make the choice. So there is some, human element that needs to make these choices to make sure that it's going to work for your company. If that wasn't required, you wouldn't have the screen at all, and it would just run everything. But there's so many different human variables that there has to be someone looking at that and making that call there. The next thing is pretty self-explanatory. Is the quantity on order. How many do I already have on order? Then quantity on hand. How many is in stock today? Then you've got cost and extended cost. Then you got your reorder point. So most of those you can see are, I'm gonna order these only when I need them through supply and demand. But you can see that last line item has 20 as a reorder point. So that means that, hey, once I hit less than 20, I need to reorder those in a quantity of 50. That's what the economical order quantity means. That's where I get the best deals when I order at least 50 of those. And then the MOQ right there is minimum order quantity. So that means even though I get a great deal on 50, I don't have to order 50. I can order as little as 1. So that's pretty powerful information right there. That's everything the purchasing agent needs right there on this small view here. And then the last one we'll probably talk about is the summed required quantity, where it says how many do I need to meet my commitment. So that's a pretty good set of data right there. And then they've got a couple other little tricks up their sleeves. You see these little blue I buttons that stand for information. We'll go in and click on this, and this is going to pull up a lot of data. So not only do they have those columns with the data there, you can access just about any of that information that I was showing you on those previous tabs right from here. So maybe he says, hey, I know it's saying I need 28, but maybe I can spread that out a little bit more to spread my cash flow out. Maybe I don't need to order all of those today. Maybe I can place 3 orders once a week and spread out when I'm making those payments to preserve cash flow. So it really does give the purchasing agent all the tools he needs right in this view. So it's very, very dynamic. And then the purchasing agent is able to click right here, this little icon here that says all on the far right-hand side, or left-hand side, sorry, and create a PO right from the screen. So everything he needs is right here. Now, let me tell you a quick story from a past client. If they had this D3 ERP MRP process, they would be so much better with their inventory. Like Daryl said earlier, this client had found over $1 million that they didn't know they had in inventory, which that's a staggering number. But it was from their process. They didn't have an organizational tool. So they were manually counting things, like I said earlier, reporting those numbers to a purchasing agent. Sometimes it would vary from week to week who was counting, so it's not like the same person always knew where everything was. There's 50 other guys there working and moving and just doing their job, so things get shuffled around. That guy's expected to know where everything is, and things get misplaced. So what ended up happening was a purchase order for a specific type of part they had was placed several times when in fact they had plenty of it. And so now they're sitting on over 65,000 in stock. That's going to take them the better part of 2 years to use. So this is just a product that they're sitting on. They can't liquidate it anywhere. They can't sub it out for anything else. They're sitting on $65,000 worth of stock. And I mean, I don't know about you, but that seems like a gut wrenching, oh my gosh, like where else could that have been to further their business? So this is a powerful tool that had they been using at that time would have solved that completely. It would have said, hey, you don't need that many. Don't order that many. So that's a really good live use case example of why this is a super powerful tool. So I'm going to go ahead and hand it back over to Daryl.
Thank you, Joshua. And so that concludes today's session. Again, just a short and sweet point on purchasing, and I hope that it was beneficial to you all. The next one for next week will be engineering versus production, being able to track the data and without being able to slow you down. So you want to be able to make decisions, you want to keep things moving. So it's all about that visibility and having good insight. Thank you all for joining.